Listen closely. This is for you. You've been living in your head too long. You say you're tired, but it's not your body, it's your mind. You go to bed exhausted, not from doing too much, but from thinking too much. You overanalyze every text you send. You second-guess every decision you make. You wonder if people really like you, or if they're just pretending. You replay conversations from years ago, wishing you'd said something different. And you imagine future scenarios, most of them filled with failure, regret, or embarrassment. You try to relax, but your mind doesn't let you. You try to be present, but your thoughts pull you away. You want peace, but instead, you've built a prison out of your own thoughts. Does that sound familiar? It's not that you don't want to move forward. It's that your mind is stuck in a loop. A loop that tells you, what if I fail? What if I say the wrong thing? What if they judge me? What if I make the wrong choice? And here's the hardest part. The more intelligent, sensitive, or aware you are, the more prone you are to overthinking. You think deeply. You care deeply. You feel deeply. But somewhere along the way, that became your burden instead of your gift. Let me tell you the truth. Overthinking doesn't protect you. It paralyzes you. It makes you afraid to try. Afraid to speak. Afraid to act. Afraid to live. And while you're stuck in your thoughts, life keeps moving. Opportunities pass. Relationships fade. Your confidence crumbles. Your dreams get buried under 1,000 what-ifs. But it doesn't have to stay this way. You don't have to carry this weight in your mind forever. You can quiet the noise. You can take back control. You can stop overthinking and start living. Because here's something you may have never heard. You're not broken. You're just stuck in a habit of thinking that no longer serves you. And like any habit, it can be unlearned. You don't need to figure everything out right now. You don't need every answer today. You don't need to be perfect. What you need is clarity, confidence, peace. And that begins when you decide, I've had enough of living in my head. It's time to live in the moment. Because thinking isn't the problem. Overthinking is. It keeps you spinning. It keeps you doubting. It keeps you small. And your life is too big for that. Your future is too important. Your peace is too valuable. So ask yourself, how much more time will you waste overthinking things you cannot control? How many more nights will you spend fighting battles that don't exist? How many more opportunities will you let slip by because you were too afraid to take the first step? It's time to stop. To breathe. To reset. This video was made for you. Because deep down, you know you're tired of carrying this weight. You want to feel free. You want to trust yourself again. You want to let go of the loop in your mind. And you can. But first, you need to understand why you overthink. Where it comes from. And what to do about it. Stick with me. I'm going to walk you through a story that will feel like your own. I'll show you how it starts, how it spirals, and how to break the cycle. Then, I'll give you real tools, simple ones, that actually work. Tools that will help you take back your focus. Rebuild your confidence. And finally feel peace inside your own head. Because you deserve that. You don't have to be a prisoner of your own mind. You can be its master. So if you've ever felt like your thoughts were too loud, too heavy, too overwhelming, if you've ever felt like you were your own worst enemy, this is your moment. Don't click away. Don't silence this message. Because it could be the one thing that finally sets you free. And if you're someone who overthinks everything, I can promise you this. Watching to the end might change everything. If you're ready to stop thinking yourself out of your future. If you're ready to finally breathe again. If you're ready to take back your peace. Then don't just watch. Stay. Listen. Reflect. And apply. This is for you. This is your sign. And if this speaks to you, if you feel like this video was made for you, take 1 second to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Because it only takes one message to change a mind, to change a life, maybe even yours. Emma felt like the world around her was moving at a different speed. Everyone else seemed calm, smiling, carrying on with their day-to-day lives, but inside, she felt like she was falling apart, piece by piece, without anyone noticing. She had always been that way, the kind of person who couldn't let things go. Every word spoken to her was analyzed and overanalyzed, every action scrutinized, every mistake magnified. No one knew this about Emma, at least not in the way she felt it. She was good at hiding it, keeping up the appearance of being okay. But inside, the storm raged. At work, things should have been going well. She had a small but cozy office at the design agency in Atlanta where she worked as a graphic designer. She had a small team of people she worked closely with, a few clients she enjoyed working for, and projects that allowed her to stretch her creative muscles. On paper, it was everything Emma had ever wanted. But her mind wouldn't let her enjoy it. When her boss, Ryan, called her into his office one morning to talk after a meeting, Emma couldn't help but feel a sinking feeling in her stomach. He had only said a few words, "We'll talk later," but those words felt heavy. Was it about her latest project? Was it about a client complaint she didn't know about? Maybe she had said something wrong during the meeting? Maybe she wasn't doing enough. All of these questions flooded Emma's mind. She immediately assumed the worst-case scenario. She couldn't stop it. Thoughts kept spiraling, each one darker than the last. Maybe I'll be fired, she thought, maybe this is the beginning of the end. She didn't eat lunch that day. The last few hours of her workday were spent in a haze, thinking about all the possible reasons why Ryan had wanted to meet with her. Maybe he was tired of her work. Maybe he had already found someone better. Every conversation, every interaction from that moment, was filtered through this lens of doubt. She replayed the meeting in her head, picking apart every little detail. Her mind didn't let her breathe. Every little thing was a signal, a message, a clue she was missing. Finally, when the clock struck 5 p.m., Ryan called her into his office. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest as she walked toward the door. As she sat down, she braced herself for the worst, expecting the words that would end her career, the words that would confirm all her fears. But Ryan smiled. He leaned forward. "Emma, I just wanted to say you've been doing a fantastic job. We're actually looking to give you more responsibilities. I think you're ready for the next step." The words hit Emma like a wave. She couldn't believe it. After all the hours of overthinking, after all the sleepless nights and the anxiety attacks, it turned out that she was doing fine. Not only was she doing fine, but she was being trusted with more work. Emma smiled, thanked him, and left the office feeling both relieved and embarrassed. She had spent the entire day tearing herself apart over nothing. In a way, it was almost a joke. But the feeling of shame was hard to shake off. Why had she let herself get so worked up? Why had she jumped to such drastic conclusions? Later that night, as Emma sat on her bed, scrolling through her phone, she reflected on the day. Why do I do this? She asked herself. She didn't have the answer. But she knew this wasn't the first time. It wasn't the first time she had overthought something to the point of exhaustion. And it probably wouldn't be the last. It was like a constant storm inside her, a whirlwind of worries, insecurities, and self-doubt. She had always tried to be the strong one, the one who had everything together. But what if this was something that was never going to stop? What if she was always going to feel like this? The thoughts started again, swirling, pulling her deeper into that familiar darkness. She closed her eyes, trying to calm herself. But the storm inside kept getting louder. It had been a few weeks since Emma's conversation with Ryan, but her overthinking hadn't stopped. If anything, it had gotten worse. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was never doing enough, never good enough. It wasn't just at work, this feeling followed her everywhere. One afternoon, Emma was sitting at a cafe with her best friend, Tyler. They had been friends for years, ever since high school, and Tyler was one of the few people who really understood her. Emma had always kept her emotions close to her chest, but there was something about Tyler's calm demeanor that made it easier to open up. "You've been acting different lately, Em," Tyler said, taking a sip of his coffee. "I can tell something's bothering you. What's going on?" Emma stared down at her coffee cup, trying to hold back the tears that were threatening to spill over. She wanted to say she was fine, but she couldn't. Not anymore. Not with Tyler. Emma paused, struggling to find the words. "I don't know. I can't stop thinking. About everything. About work, about my friends, about every single thing I do. It's like my brain won't stop, and I can't get away from it." Tyler nodded, his eyes kind. He didn't interrupt, just waited for her to continue. "I feel like I'm always 2 steps behind everyone else, like I'm constantly playing catch-up. I can't relax. I can't just be." Tyler took a deep breath before speaking softly. "Emma, you're doing too much to yourself. You're not meant to carry all of this. You have to let it go. You can't control everything. You have to trust yourself." Emma was quiet for a long moment, letting his words sink in. She had heard them before, but they always seemed too simple. She didn't know how to let go. It wasn't that easy. But Tyler wasn't finished. "You're allowed to rest, you know. You're allowed to be gentle with yourself. The world won't fall apart if you stop overthinking. In fact, it might just make everything clearer." For the first time in a long time, Emma felt a small shift. Maybe it wasn't the answer she was hoping for, but it was the start of something. Maybe she didn't need to fix everything. Maybe it was okay to just breathe. When Emma got home that night, she sat in her room, her phone buzzing with notifications. But instead of scrolling aimlessly, she did something different. She opened a blank notebook and began writing. She wrote about her fears, her insecurities, her worries. She wrote until her hand hurt, until the storm inside her started to quiet down. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, she felt a little lighter. Emma knew she wasn't fixed. She wasn't magically healed. But she had taken the first step. She had given herself permission to stop. After weeks of feeling like she was drowning in a sea of thoughts, Emma finally realized something important. She couldn't keep living like this. She couldn't let overthinking control her every waking moment. But the question lingered, how could she stop it? The first step, Emma learned, was to accept that overthinking was part of who she was. She didn't need to fight it or push it away. Trying to ignore the thoughts only made them stronger. Instead, she needed to acknowledge them. When she felt those familiar waves of anxiety rising, she would pause, take a deep breath, and remind herself, it's okay. These thoughts don't define me. Emma began practicing mindfulness, focusing on the present moment rather than spiraling into the past or future. Whenever she started overthinking, she'd ask herself, is this helping me right now? If the answer was no, she would gently redirect her mind to the present task, the here and now. At first, it wasn't easy. Emma wasn't used to this kind of mental discipline. Her brain wanted to hold on to everything, analyze everything, find an answer for everything. But each time she let go, even for a few minutes, she felt lighter. And the more she practiced, the easier it became. Small moments of peace added up to bigger moments of calm. One of the most powerful tools Emma started using was writing. Whenever she felt overwhelmed, she would grab her notebook and jot down her thoughts. It wasn't about solving the problem, it was about getting her thoughts out of her head and onto paper. She learned that when she could see her thoughts written down, they didn't seem so big and unmanageable anymore. They were just words on a page. Emma also started taking care of her body, something she had neglected in her mental struggle. She made a commitment to go for a walk every day, even if it was just around the block. Moving her body helped her clear her mind. She realized how closely connected her mind and body were. Exercise, even just a short walk, had a huge impact on her mental clarity and mood. It gave her energy, it helped her think more clearly, and most importantly, it gave her a chance to be present in the moment. Another key part of Emma's solution was to set boundaries with her thoughts. She began to recognize when she was spiraling, and rather than giving in to the endless cycle of worry, she would tell herself, "I'll come back to this later," or "I'll think about it tomorrow." By setting boundaries, she stopped letting her thoughts consume every part of her day. She gave herself permission to rest. Emma also began talking to the people she trusted, like her best friend Tyler, when the overthinking became too much. She realized that having someone to talk to about her worries didn't make her weak. It didn't make her less in control. In fact, it gave her perspective. When she shared her thoughts with someone else, she could see just how often she was blowing things out of proportion. Tyler would listen, offer his thoughts, but most importantly, he would remind her that she was doing enough. In the end, Emma realized that overthinking wasn't something that could be completely fixed. It wasn't something that could be turned off with a snap of the fingers. But with the right tools, the right mindset, and a little bit of patience, she could live with it, without letting it control her. She could choose peace. She could let go of the need for control over everything, and in doing so, she could start living with more freedom. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was the start of something better. Emma knew that every time she took one small step in the right direction, she was getting closer to the life she wanted, one where she wasn't ruled by the storm inside her head. And just like that, Emma found the courage to keep moving forward, to trust herself, and to live in the moment. As Emma's journey shows, overcoming overthinking doesn't happen overnight, but with consistent effort and the right tools, you can take back control of your mind. It's about being kind to yourself, setting boundaries, and choosing peace over chaos. Remember, the smallest steps forward are still progress. If you're struggling with the same issues, know that you're not alone, and there are ways to find peace again. If this resonated with you, take a moment to subscribe, share this video with someone who might need to hear it, and comment below with your thoughts or experiences. You're part of a community that's here to support each other, so let's keep the conversation going and help each other grow.